Hi, everybody. I'm Julie DeLucca-Collins, and I am the founder, CEO of Go Confidently Services. I am a podcaster, author, and also a doggy mama. And one of the biggest things that I am excited about today is to be able to share with you this panel. As you know, and I said, the power of confidence is something very special to my heart. And before we start, I want to share a little bit of why this topic, why today? And again, for me, one of the things that I want to be able to share with each of you who are attending and watching is that confidence is not something for the elite. It is for all of us. It is something that is available to all of us so that when we feel that confidence and passion, we can go out there and create a ripple effect, not only in the lives of those around us, but also for ourselves. Because ultimately, when we show up in the world as the best version of ourselves, then our impact is greater. And my first reason why I wanted to share this with you is, and I share this in my book, as I might have mentioned, I'm an author. And um, when I was 12 years old, I was always a very outspoken child and very, never really, I guess, suffered from lack of confidence until I was 12 and I started to develop. I started to develop rapidly and I got a chest. And I don't think I was ready for that. And as most of us who are 12 and changing, our bodies are evolving, one of the things that happened is that I was very self conscious. All of a sudden, that outspoken girl that didn't have a problem jumping in front of people, reciting poems, or going to dance recitals, found herself really self conscious and not willing to step out like she had before. So, this particular day, though, in 1980 something, I lived in Miami and I was so excited because I was going to hold my head up high for a change. I was walking to school because I couldn't wait to get to school. Things were going to be so different on this day, super different. And what was going to be different is that I was not going to run into the shower stall or into the bathroom stall to change for my gym class that day. I was actually going to openly, change in front of all the other girls because I was wearing the most adorable set of undergarments. Uh, Vidal Sassoon little bra that hooked in the front, and that was brand new for me, and a set of panties that matched. My mom's friend had given me this beautiful set, and I thought, I know some of these girls that have, that tend to be not so nice to me are going to be like, oh, that's so nice. Look at you in your cute underwear. And again, I was so excited to change and I put on my gym clothes and I went out to the field and I'm standing there and I'm standing out proud. And all of a sudden I noticed that these girls were staring at me and doing the pointing thing. And little did I know that when you are out in the sun and you are wearing a white t-shirt, like it was our shirt for gym, that things are pretty transparent and that sheer fabric that the cups of my undergarments were made out of, all of a sudden we're showing everything. So soon the girls in my class were making fun of me and laughing. And the gym teacher promptly sent me back to the locker room to change. So it was a big failure. And I have to say that that was one of those defining moments in my life in which I realized that, nothing that you can leverage, the clothes, the makeup, for me, were going to be the thing that created confidence. Confidence had to be created from what was here in my mindset and also from the daily action that created the habits that allowed me to feel more in control of who I was. And, I'm a big proponent of makeup, by the way. I love my good red lipstick, but I don't rely on a lot of that for that confidence feelings that has gotten me through. Fast forward in my life, I went ahead and I climbed the corporate ladder. And I was so fortunate that the biggest mentor in my life was my father. And the name of my company, Go Confidently Services, comes from go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you have imagined. And that's a quote, as many of you know, from Henry David Thoreau. I first heard that quote from my dad. And as I started to climb the corporate ladder, anytime that I was unsure of myself, that I was a beginner at something, that I was just kind of getting my feet wet in whatever circumstance, whether it be a new role or speaking at conferences or trying to go for the next big thing, I reminded myself that go confidently. But with every new beginning, it meant doing the daily action, doing the daily thing to practice to become better. As I continued in that corporate career for over 20 years, I was able to get into the C suite of an organization. And it took a lot. But ultimately, one of the things that, and most of us know this already, the higher we grow in our organizations, we see less and less women in that role. And, we've experienced watching for whatever reason, our sisters just stepping back. And one of the biggest things that I would hear from others is, Julie, I wish I was as confident as you did, as you are. I wish I could do the things that you are doing. And even now, my biggest response to people is that I don't always have it together. I don't always feel like an expert at something, but what allows me to show up confidently forward is that I keep trying, that I understand that it is a process, that it's something that we continue to work at. And when I work at it, whether I am achieving it or not, I am going to celebrate it because behavioral science, behavior design tells us that change happens not when we feel bad but happens when we feel good. And again, I was lucky enough to have a father that believed in me, that helped me believe in me in myself. But now I want to pass on that belief to others. I want to pass on the belief to the many women who are out there and for whatever reason have felt that I don't have what she has. I don't have the skills, or I could never be as poised or as well dressed or as savvy, and fill in the blank, right? But I want us to know that anything that we set our mind to is possible as long as we are willing to try, as long as we are willing to take the first step into doing it. I remember that after that fiasco as a 12-year-old, I did not go back into hiding in the shadows of the bathroom stall. And the main reason I didn't hide is because I came to the conclusion that this was me. And my dad reminded me that not everybody was going to always like me, but that I needed to be okay with myself. I needed to be okay. And listen, it's not like I have it all together at all times, but it's something that we have to practice in order to really own it, in order to really step into that purpose, into that moment. We all have these sabotaging beliefs. We all have this judge that is always speaking to us. And for the reason that we're here, we're here to celebrate the power that we have as passionate, purposeful individuals. I want to remind you that it is normal to have that judge. Our brain is programmed to be negative. Our brain is programmed to have all these other voices that, for whatever reason, have become saboteurs in our life. And many people say to me, Julie, I don't understand. Like I'm always telling myself that I can't or I won't, I shouldn't, I wouldn't. How do I change that? And there's so many different things that we can do to change that. But ultimately, what I want you to know is that we have to learn to normalize that we're not always going to feel that confident. We're not always going to feel our motivation, because if we're relying on motivation to do the thing, we're never going to accomplish it. But what we can rely on is creating the simple habits, the everyday consistent action for our lives that remind us, like, you know what, today I'm not going to like just get undressed in this locker room, but maybe I am going to uh, take the first step and make it last and be consistent and continue to do that so that it becomes second nature and celebrate ourselves for the process. The same thing happens when we're building a business or when we are, maybe you're looking to be a speaker or write a book. The more that you continue to show up on a daily basis and taking that minimum action and then celebrating what you're doing, the more that you're going to start to program and reprogram the voices, the judge, the saboteurs that we all have in our head. Um, Again, there's nothing wrong with having these saboteurs. There's 10 different saboteurs that tend to be very prominent for us. For me, one of my sabotaging voices that tends to really give me pause is the high achiever. The high achiever is always someone that is looking to get to the next level and be really good at it. And sometimes, if I think, "Oh, I could never really be good at that," I stop trying. And that's how we sabotage ourselves and we rob ourselves of our ability to do the thing, to feel confident, to stand in our power. So when I have that voice in my brain telling me, you can never do this, you're not good enough, then what I do is I start to normalize that and say, oh my God, there goes my brain again telling me I'm not going to do it perfectly. So I might as well not do it at all. And then I start to look at the gift in every circumstance. Because when we start to look at the gift in the circumstances, even those challenging circumstances, what we start to do is we start to rewire how we are going to show up. When we're looking at the woe is me, when we are allowing ourselves to be stuck in that moment, um, then it's very difficult to continue to want to move forward. So I encourage you to definitely look at the different ways in which you sabotage yourself and rob yourself of the confidence. These things, again, we're not going to be able to ever turn them off or get rid of them, but we are going to be able to then just rewire a little bit at a time. Change what we are saying, the internal dialogue. In the last session that we had, there was a prominent concept that people were really discussing, and that was that imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is great because at times it has allowed us to be protected from situations that might not be great. But at the same time, in order to overcome it, we need to be able to understand that this is happening. There's other sabotaging things that rob you of confidence. For instance, the people pleasers in here, those things will also rob you of the confidence to do the things and to show up every day and to make your mark in the world. If you're always looking to do for others, but you're not really saying, what does that mean to me? Then that is another way in which you are really taking away from you. So much that we want to talk about when it comes to confidence, when it comes to this conversation, and the power that we can come into when it comes to confidence. I want to turn it over, though, to our incredible ladies who are joining me in this panel because they have some amazing stories, and I want to just give them the opportunity to speak. And now, as we move to the next participant, we will all come back together as well and talk further on this conversation. So let's bring our other panelists up. And I believe, is that Roxie, who is our next? Oh, it's Cairo. Yay, Cairo Eubanks. And Cairo, thank you for being a part of this panel. Cairo, I have such admiration for you as I do with the other ladies. But please take it away and tell us more about this topic.
Be my absolute pleasure. Hello, my name is Cairo Eubanks. I'm Miss Black Florida, co-chair of the United Nations Department of Global Communications Youth Representative Steering Committee, and the founder of Cairo Speaks, Cairo Writes. To the Passionistas project, I shared this as a private message, but I really want to thank you again for allowing me to share my story and for creating this platform for others to also share their message. I'm grateful to be calling in from Sao Paulo, Brazil, so I apologize if I go in and out, but here's my story as to how I learned how to value my work. It was 2020. I had recently returned back to the United States from Tamil Nadu, South India. Fresh out of college and eager to use my international studies degree to continue my passion for education as a tool for cultural exchange, I thought it was destiny when I had been accepted as a grant recipient to teach formerly Dalit or children who had been labeled as untouchables within the Indian social caste system. It was definitely a challenge that I jumped into where on my first day in the country, I was tasked with designing curriculum for high school students in English literature that would help them prepare for their Indian state board exams. Not just to complete their exams, but to do competitively well. Prior to that, I had never created curriculum for students, and here I was preparing to teach bright, ambitious, and capable students every single day. Without a doubt, I was nervous to do well, but I was more determined to make a lasting impression on my new students that far outweighed that little voice in my head, questioning if I was ready to take on this task. You see, at the time, I was still reeling from the fact that I hadn't quite lived up to all of the goals that I had set out to accomplish when I was a freshman in college. I'd come into my freshman year orientation confident in my abilities to excel academically and graduate magna cum laude, attend semester at sea as a study abroad program, and have at least a 3.8 GPA, among other achievements that I had written out on my to-do list. Yes, I did end up attending semester at sea with an almost full ride scholarship. I was active on different boards, student boards, created initiatives on my campus, and had successfully defended my honors thesis. But I found out on my graduation day that my GPA was not a 3.7 as I had thought throughout my last semester in college and had seen on my college transcripts, but technically a 3.6958. As my college rounded to the 10,000, making me ineligible to graduate magna cum laude. And even though I graduated cum laude and with honors and distinction, for me, I felt that I had failed my freshman year self. These self-doubts were still in my head as I entered the program in India. Was I even good enough to be an international grant teacher? Would I fall short of my ambitions here too? I tried to push these thoughts away. After all, I was already in the country. And if I had made it this far, I could push myself to create classes for my new students. And so I leapt feet first into this opportunity. And it was truly a life-changing experience as I did my best to infuse cultural exchange and integrate conversations on prejudice, discrimination, and interesting topics like differences in naming traditions and marriage rights into our curriculum. My focus was not on just having my students memorize and regurgitate information, but to learn their stories and to integrate their personal narratives into their coursework. I can't begin to tell you how rewarding it was to see my students come to life in class and get engaged in the material in ways that they shared they had never done before. And after an incredible 6 months in India, I came back to the United States, excited to see how I could create similar leadership development programs with a common component of storytelling. So when New Leaders Council Broward chapter invited me to come back after graduating through their National Fellowship Program to teach a workshop for young professionals and entrepreneurs on storytelling with an advocacy angle, I immediately thought of my students back in South India and created a seminar called Storytelling with a Purpose. The program coordinators shared how effective and engaging the workshop was and gave me an open invitation to come back for future fellowship cohorts to present again. Excited, I shared this news with my college's writing studio director, who immediately told me that she would like to contract me to do this program for their regional graduate school exploration program. And then she asked me one of the most life-changing questions I had ever been asked. How much do you charge? Shocked, I sat there on the telephone in silence. Charge? I'd never once charged for the programs I created. When I was in India, I was there as a grant recipient and volunteer international teacher. And for New Leaders Council, presentations and workshop design were done voluntarily. All of the community programs I had created since returning from India had been done from the heart, with no expectation of receiving anything in exchange. I realized something in that moment. I had never placed a value on original work that I had created. Sure, at 25, I had already been a speaker for over a decade, but it was the first time that I was paid to present a workshop and program that I designed myself. But this question and the opportunity to actually place a quantifiable amount on the hard work put into designing and presenting my programs opened up a new level of confidence for me. Because I believe that true confidence comes from your ability to not only recognize that you're capable of creating, inventing, and innovating products and services, but being able to recognize that what you create out of nothing has value. And to recognize that by creating something that was once only in your head and bringing it to life, you are the one who can dictate its worth. Since launching my business, Cairo Speaks, Cairo Writes LLC, and having speaking engagements as the keynote speaker for cities, national organizations, and even hosting for a United Nations agency, I have been able to see firsthand how organizations value what I create. And because I see myself as a vessel whose purpose is to pour into others, I have actually now created international certificate programs for students, like Storytelling with a Purpose, to help teens see the value in their stories and to recognize how their individual contributions help to create a global impact. This is because the next level of confidence and the power of confidence is the ability to be a light that encourages others to see the light that shines so brightly within them. In closing, I would love to thank our moderator, Julie, for constantly supporting and empowering women who are entrepreneurs to be valued and financially compensated for the products and services that they provide. Thank you, Julie, for constantly reminding us to go confidently towards our dreams. Over to you, Julie.
Cairo, thank you so much. I am so proud of the work that you're doing internationally. I think that the one thing that really speaks to me about the work that you do is that we are modeling for those young women coming behind us that no matter who we are, we can come behind and follow these footsteps, right? Because for so many of us, we saw some examples, but not a lot. And you, along with every other person that has been a part of this panel and this summit, has empowered me to remember that my nieces are going to have great examples of what's available and who is out there. So I thank you for your work in working with young people and also being international in this endeavor, because it's not just here at home, but it's everywhere in this world that we need to leave our mark and create that ripple effect. Thank you, Cairo.
Thank you.
And now our next speaker, we have two other ladies who, again, I am so in awe of who they are. And our next speaker is Kim Roxie. Finally, yay, Kim.
Hey!
And I have to say, this is a woman who I met through Nancy and Amy. It is an honor to know Kim and to have gotten to learn more about what she does, what she stands for, and her journey. So, Kim, I'm going to turn it over to you and thank you again for being a part of the panel. And I can't wait to listen to your story.
Yes, thank you so much, Julie. Okay, can we all just show Julie some love in the comments? Can we show her some love in the comments? Can we go in? Can we go in for a second? Oh my goodness. Julie, Carolyn is just like, they just hit me with the exclamation marks. Okay. Dr. Bird said, yes, so good. And then Cairo, oh my gosh, the queendom of it all, the royalty of it all. Oh my gosh, just such a queen, such a queen, such a queen, such royalty. Yes, it does, Cairo. Yes, it does. Oh, Dr. Melissa, I just got these earrings in Scottsdale, Arizona. Y'all, I just flew back home to Houston from Scottsdale, Arizona, from having an event there last night. And oh, we had a time. So I apologize. I got an excitement hangover. I got an excitement hangover. Yes. Oh my goodness. And to Amy and Nancy, thank you. You sisters are just the power duo. Just a power duo. You two are sister goals. Somebody put sister goals in the comments, okay? They are sister goals. Come on, sister goals. Oh my goodness, sister goals. I just love them. And who said they're from Houston? Wait, hold on. Did I see somebody say they're from Houston? Cristina Gonzalez from Houston. Okay, yes. So, oh my goodness. This is my story. This is my story. My story is just being a hot mess sometimes. My story is just being a hot mess sometimes. You know, it's so funny because the story is unfolding every day. And I think, and what I loved, Julie, I almost did an altar call when Julie was talking, because I was like, oh my God, Julie is like calling me out. She's like high achievers. She's like people pleasers. I got my box of tissue right here. I can't even, I don't even, I'm just, I'm like, I am a hot mess. I just realized that when Julie was just talking, I was like, I am a hot mess. So let me tell you, I'll tell you that the reason why we talk about the power of confidence and we talk about, you know, sometimes just admitting and just being there. I thought about this recently because I asked myself, Kim, do you make mistakes? And it really starts to make me think about, no, Kim, it's about, do you mistake? Like, do you not take the opportunities of taking up space, of taking your time? Do you miss the takes? And I would love to just sort of share the times where my confidence was supposed to be taken from me based on mistakes. The way that people define mistakes is a missed alignment or even something you end up regretting. But I would love to just kind of bring for consideration and look at mistake, actually a mistake. And I want to basically just get us to sort of look and view at this point of view a little differently. So I'll tell you, I've been a hot mess for a long time. It started at an early age. I remember I'm the middle child of sisters. So you know how that can be, right? And so as a middle child, I had to figure out how to stand out. I mean, because it was the oldest, who everybody knew, and then it's like the baby, right? And then you just in the middle. No excitement. You came, everybody's kind of like, oh, okay, that's cool. And for me at a young age, it was about like standing out, right? And so when you are a girl that starts to explore and take risks and sort of like stand out, you're gonna have some hot mess moments. One big hot mess moment for me was when I was 16. I was at school and I got into an altercation with a guy friend of mine. And from that altercation, I got kicked out of school. This was like my first time really getting in trouble. My first time, really having something that even got called to the principal office for, but they had this zero tolerance. And so I was immediately kicked out of school at 16. And being kicked out of school, it was not just me. My parents invested a lot in me. My parents worked hard for me to, go to school. Like they migrated to Houston from Mobile, Alabama, where they left their family to come start a new beginning for them and their girls in Houston. So my parents invested a lot. So me getting kicked out of school, that's a hot mess. That's the whole family, right? And that's looking like that. And I remember in that moment being like, God, like I really messed up. I made a mistake. I, shouldn't have done what I did. I shouldn't have reacted the way I reacted. And now look at me. I'm in juvenile, like in this, well, they call juvenile on me, but I ended up going to an alternative school and all this stuff. And I'm just like, this is not who I am. This is not who I am. And I started my confidence on all of the wonderful things that I had worked on up until that point. I played the classical piano. I was a cheerleader. I played the keyboard for the jazz band. I had all these things going for me, but all of that just sort of boom, came down. And I just remember being like, how am I going to come back from this? And how am I going to change other people's view of me? Like I just was in a fog, and my confidence was at an all-time low. I didn't want to sort of be seen by anybody. I didn't want to talk to any of my friends because I didn't want to answer any questions. I didn't want to talk to my parents' friends. I didn't want to go to church. I didn't want to be at the park. I didn't want to be anywhere because I didn't want anybody to ask me about what was going on and this and that and have to answer for that. So I kind of went on the inside of me a lot and really lived there. And so I ended up writing down some of my goals because my teacher in my alternative school saw all the frustration on my face. And she said, and she saw my bad attitude I was coming to school with. And she said, you got to write down your 1-year goal. You got to write down your 5-year goal. She's like, because you got to understand, you got something to look towards. So I wrote down my 1-year goal because everybody told me I wasn't going to be able to go to college. They were calling us at risk at this school. They were telling us that we probably wasn't even going to become productive citizens. And so I wrote down this goal of, I just want to get accepted into college. I want to go to Clark Atlanta University. That's a school. That was my dream school. I said, I just want to get accepted into college, a 4-year college. And then in 5 years, I couldn't even think about what I wanted to be when I grew up. All I knew was, I said, I just want to be successful. I just want to be successful. And I remember writing that down. Fast forward 1 year later, I got accepted into Clark Atlanta University. Hallelujah. Okay. Redemption. I got accepted into Clark Atlanta University. I didn't tell anybody I even applied to the school. I just kind of did it on my own. I got accepted. My parents let me go. I went out there. I got loans. I got whatever I needed to attend that school because I got accepted. And I went to that school. And then right after I graduated from college, I opened up my own makeup store, my own makeup shop in my hometown of Houston, Texas, at 21 years old. Remember, I was 16 when I got kicked out of school. 5 years later, I got a letter in the mail from a career day when I opened up my store, maybe a couple weeks into being open, saying, can you come to our career day? At this time, I just turned 22. I'm like, sounds good to me, a career day. Go talk to kids. I may be interested. So the day of the career day, I look at the address. I said, oh my God, this place is looking familiar. I drive up. It's the alternative school that I went to. So I get out the car, go inside. I'm like, and they're like telling us how to get around this school. They're like, because it's metal detectors, you can only go in certain areas because a lot of people there, a lot of the kids are on probation, So I'm like, oh, I know how to get around the school. Like, yeah, we can't do this. We can't do that. And they're like, how do you know this stuff? Because I went here. They're like, you went to this school? I'm like, yes. They were like, you went to this school? I was like, yes. I was like, how did you find out about me? They were like, no, they were like, you work at the makeup store? Well, some of the kids have been going to the mall. They've seen that makeup store, and they were just saying they want to work in a place like that. They want to be makeup artists, cosmetologists. They want to own a store like that. Whatever it was, they want to work there, and they wanted whoever works there to come out. And they were like, you work there and you went here? And then I was like, yeah, I actually own the store. They're like, you own it? So they said they never had anybody in the history of that school who had actually sat in the seats that those kids in that alternative school sat in ever come and speak at their career day. So was it a mistake? Or was it a take? A moment that I had to take in to become who I am today, and then to be there to take up space and be in front of those kids and take that opportunity to be in front of them so they could see themselves in me. And in that moment, that 5-year goal that I wrote down, I just want to be successful. These kids were telling me I was successful. You're successful. And they saw their future in a different way. And they saw that the comeback could happen for them. They saw that the redemption could happen for them. They saw that if they just forgive themselves, that it'll be okay. They saw that maybe, is it a mistake, or is it a different take on life, a different road that I'll have to travel, so one day I can be this for someone else. So my confidence started, I'll tell you, in that moment, it was a defining moment of confidence for me, because after that moment, I never doubted anymore anything that happened in my life. Because in that moment, I knew that at some point, God would allow for it to become full circle and for it to have purpose. So I invite you today to look over your life and come to peace so you can have confidence for the rest of your race. All right. Love y'all. Oh, Lamik Beauty. Make sure you go get you some Lamik. Love you. Love you. Love you. Love you. Julie, back to you.
Well, Kim, I cannot love this anymore, because you are again taking that direction that we started of, you created a visible picture for those kids of what could be accomplished. And by the way, that mistake or a take, I love it. I do want to say that this is one thing that people tend to forget, because we focus on failure. But I want to leave people, especially as they remember your story, that what some people may look at as a failure, your failure is the first action in learning. And what you did is you learned that, okay, I had this situation, and where do I want to be? And you created that clear, concise picture, and showing up daily after you went to the alternative school and knowing where you wanted to be, created that consistent action to get you there. So thank you, my dear. Also, you said take a moment. And this is a lot of what will help you build confidence and become powerful in that confidence, is taking that moment to be aware, to be in the present, because we focus either on what we did wrong before, or yes, it's important to set the goals, but don't, that's not a predictor of your future. Stay here in the moment, and that's what's going to do it. I love everything that you said. Thank you so much for opening up and sharing that. I appreciate you, and we're going to bring you back for the roundup.
Yes.
And now we have our next speaker, the phenomenal, and I have to say a little bit about this young woman. She is someone who I just admire. She is So, like the other panelist, Cristina Gonzalez is a coach, but she is the coach for Curvy girls. And I love that this is what she does because sometimes, we have these moments in which, again, it would be so easy to see our gifts or who we are as a detriment, but she is empowering other women to know that, we can rock no matter who we are. So, Christina, I hope you're joining the stage. Thank you so much for being a part of it. And let's see, is she coming? And there she is, Cristina Gonzalez. Girl, thank you so much for being a part of the panel. Please take a moment to introduce yourself, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. So I am Cristina Gonzalez, and I am the Curvy Girl dating coach. And it was kind of an interesting story how I got here, but I basically am a dating coach for curvy women who are ready to experience self-love, embrace their single life, and have confidence in dating. So I work with women so that they can feel sexy, bold, and owning it in every area in their life. So let's see. Once upon a time, I was in a relationship a long time ago in my 20s. I was finishing college and I moved on to starting my first job in my career. And all the things, it was all great and everything. And I was in this four-year relationship that pretty much just stopped going anywhere. And long story short, it just wasn't the right relationship for me. And I was 27 years old when I decided to move on. And at that time, I had all these thoughts in my head. I was like, oh my God, this story, I created this story in my head where I had to go to college, graduate high school, go to college, get a job, be married, have children, buy a house, all these things in a specific order. And it all had to be in this right timeline. And my timeline was all messed up. Now I had to start over. How was I going to find a relationship and go buy a house and get married before I was 30? Because that was this magical number that I had in my head that I was supposed to follow. And it's just not the case. But, of course I was in this panic, and then year after year, I would be single. And every year that I was single one more time, I would feel worse and worse and worse about myself. And it's I had so much to be thankful for. I had a great job. I had a career. I have a great family. I'm close to everyone. I had a nephew that was born. Everything was going well. And I just was so focused on finding the right person and getting back to my timeline. I didn't ever even have a time to stop and smell the roses and look at what I was grateful for, because I was just on this mission, and I wasn't even doing anything for it. All I was just in this panic of oh my God, nobody loves me, and it has to be because of my weight, and I have to change myself. But it was all wanting to change myself for the wrong reasons. I wasn't wanting to change myself for me. I wanted to change myself to find somebody to create this timeline and just fit in this picture that I was supposed to have. But that just wasn't authentic or real. So fast forward, a few years later, I'm past my 30-year mark, and again, starting to feel, worse and worse about it. And I ended up joining a group, a weight loss group. And the weight loss group was totally different. It was all about mindset and learning how to love yourself in all, shapes and sizes, and love yourself even if you want to make changes. The point of that was to love who you are and find the right reasons for everything that you do, and live your life with intention. So it was a completely different experience for me. And I started growing and learning to to love who I was, exactly who I was. I thought I was this incomplete person when I was really complete the whole time, but I never was able to understand that. And so, finally, again, moving forward, I chose to become a certified life coach. And I wanted to empower single women. I wanted to work with a single women to learn how to love their life and embrace who they are as a single person, because the goal, sure, having a relationship is great and nice, but you still have to live your life in the moment. And you can't just sit and be like, well, I'm not going to buy a house because I don't have a partner. I'm not going to go on vacation because I don't have a partner. I'm not going to do this because I don't have, do it. Go and do it. And I had to teach myself that, life goes on and you get to make the best of it. And I got to have a decision and make a choice. And I really, really wanted to share that with every single woman. That's just a huge mission for me. And then I ended up, turning evolving my business into becoming a dating coach for curvy women, because I feel like that is just a area where we're lacking in. I think dating is very important for people, and it's a struggle and it's hard, but there's an extra layer of frustration and struggle with us curvy women. And I was single for 10 years, and it wasn't until I found my own personal confidence into knowing that I was already amazing, and I was looking for somebody to compliment my amazingness instead of looking to fill in some gaps. So I want to share that with the entire world, and I want all women to be able to feel that way as well. So here I am, and that's what I'm doing. And I really look forward to helping everyone see the beauty that they have within themselves. And it's so important to know that it doesn't happen overnight. It happens with practice, and to start with just little baby steps, and to know that, every time you're down on yourself, to just realize you don't have to be, and that you get to create those thoughts and those feelings. You have to teach your brain to move forward, and it's really like an exercise, when your brain has been beating you down and telling you that you're not good enough and you're not worthy enough, and teaching that your brain that you really are. It takes time, and it helps with a coach if you need a coach, but it takes a lot of time to figure out what you're doing, what you're saying, and how you can believe the future self that you want to create for yourself. So words do matter. And it's just a simple little thought change. If you walk by a mirror and you're like, oh, I look so disgusting in my outfit today, change the outfit. You don't have to wear it. It's an option. But if you walk by the mirror and you realize you say that sentence to yourself, and then you can say, you know what, I don't look disgusting. I just don't like this outfit, and I can change. Just that's one baby step, so that the next time you walk through the mirror, you can, compliment your outfit, or be like, oh, you know what, my outfit's not that great, but my hair is on point today. So finding that little step to give yourself a compliment is the biggest change in your brain, because your brain's going to be like, what is happening here? What is going on? You're giving yourself a compliment, and then it's looking and searching for more of that, because it wants to feed it. You need to feed it so it can remember those things instead of all of the other things that you were telling yourself before. So anyways, that is the story of me. I'll wrap it up because I know we have other things to talk about. But Julie, back to you. And yeah, bye.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you so much again for sharing that story. I've been taking some notes because I process that way a lot. But one of the things that I was looking at is how Kim talked about, what she has with her makeup company. And then Cairo was talking about her schooling, her journey in school. You're talking about your love life. I talked a little bit about the mindset. And ultimately, confidence is something that is going to be a thread. It is going to be sort of the thread within the fabric of our life. And if we allow it to, right, by our thoughts, that thread could be very flimsy. And what we create for our life is going to not be something that is uh, as beautiful as we would like it to be. I have a question for each of you ladies. And again, thank you for being a part of the panel. If you, and Christina, you talked about the future self. If you could have your future self tell you today something that you feel would be meaningful in your continued journey forward, what would your future self be telling you today? Who wants to take that?
Is this directed to me or anybody?
Anybody can take it. But I think
All
since
right.
you spoke first, maybe you should go.
Yeah. All right. So I would say my future self would probably tell me to relax, woosah. Because the thing about it is that I am constantly on the go. I am, running different committees, or I'm part of different organizations, or I'm creating my own, programs. And so sometimes it's nice to remember sometimes that you just need to take a moment to realize that you've already done so much. And similar to what you were saying, Christina, in terms of stacking up some of like the positives of what you've already done, of what you've accomplished, even in that day, just a reminder to do that. I have a gratitude journal that I like to use, and I found that by having a confirmation journal as well in the afternoons, where I write out all the things that I've done, even if I had a million things on my to-do list and I got 999,000 of them done, right? I can be able to list that out. And by quantifying that, that actually really helps me to remember that I did quite a bit that day and to keep on going. So I would say that would be my response.
Great. Thank you so much, Cairo. All right. Kim or Christina, you want to take the future self question?
Sure. Yeah. So my future self, again, Julie, and you know this, my favorite quote is, discomfort, is part of your growth. And there's different ways that you could say it, but, so knowing that being uncomfortable is not necessarily a bad thing, and it's part of, your growth and your pattern and learning. I think that is something that my future self would definitely keep telling me, because some days it's hard, and to get yourself together or motivated, and to stay confident, and you don't necessarily believe that there's a future or like a plan ahead, like there's an answer or something, but knowing that discomfort is going to either teach you a lesson or get you through it, or, it's not going to be as hard as you think it is. There's so many things that you can learn through that discomfort that are positive. So that is, my future self advice for sure.
Oh, thank you. That's so good. I love that. I similarly say discomfort is the currency for our dreams. And sometimes we forget that because we want to live in the comfort zone. And that's your frenemy, people. I'm going to tell you, it's your friend and me. It's friend because you've had it for so long, you've just kind of stuck together, but it's not the place to be. It doesn't want the best for you. That comfort zone keeps you from growing and from actually putting your impact and mark in the world. Kim, what would your future self say to you?
Thank you.
I love that. I think, this is a really good lesson. that everything that we do today, right now, is impacting who we become. And taking that action, taking that step is what creates the tomorrow for us. And that's the power of being confident. Even if you don't know what you're going to do. One of you said, change is something that you were trying to do, Cristina, but you were doing it for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to leverage the power of the future self to know that if you're ever going to get to that point, you really have to do it by understanding that you're changing for the reasons that are going to serve you and serve that higher purpose. Like Kim set her goals long-term, short-term, and what a great teacher, by the way. Where we would be without great teachers.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I alluded to the saboteurs. And I put them in the chat, some of the other sabotaging thoughts that we could have. But our saboteurs are these negative emotions or negative thoughts that we have. Ultimately, there are some saboteurs that we tend to really live with. They're that frenemy, right? What do you feel, or how do you each overcome some of these negative sabotaging thoughts, behaviors, and what are some of your tips that you leverage to be able to gain a little bit more confident in your life? And anybody can take this.
I think for me, I think sometimes like these sabotaging thoughts actually can be awareness thoughts, that sometimes is crucial for feedback to yourself. I don't know if I'm the only person. I know I'm the hot mess of the group, but I have meetings with myself in my head, and I'm like literally being the judge, the prosecutor, defender, all at the same time in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I am going through different things, and I think for me, it's just like that's not. I just think about how can I use it for me to like grow and for it to be the best of me, versus just like, stopping it, suppressing it. Don't think, because the thoughts gonna come up. I mean, they just are. You know what I mean? And so I think for me, it's just like actually using it for self-awareness. So those thoughts that I have, some of them could have some truth, some validity to them. And so, how do I sort of use that for truth, for the best? And then I'll also say this, and I got to show off my Passionista award just as a
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So this beautiful award, I also allow other people to remind me and to talk to that sabotaging. So say, for instance, I have a thought that day that, I'm not cut out for this. Yeah, I've been doing this all this time, but the truth is I'm really not cut out for it. Sometimes I have those kind of thoughts. Really, Kim, you've been fooling yourself and fooling everybody else. You're really not cut out for it. And then some kind of way, somebody comes along and be like, so like I just had a meeting with one of my biggest retailers that we're getting ready to launch with. And in the meeting, one of the production ladies were like, oh, hey, I got something to say. One of the buying team, I got something to say. And because we're getting close to the end of the meeting. And I was like, oh, okay. She's like, but it's personal, but I just want to share it because it changed my life. She was like, Kim, you shared with us that you had alopecia and why you created your products, the brow kit to fill in your brows and all that. She said, well, I started to observe myself and I was like, I was losing some hair. She was losing some hair. She was like, and I had some other symptoms. So I went to the dermatologist. I ended up getting a biopsy and I have a form of alopecia, and she named it. And she said, I would have never known I had alopecia had you not shared yourself and that. And she said, and this is someone at a major retailer who is like just on a whole nother, and she and for her, she looks nothing like me, but for her, us to resonate, for my story to resonate with her in a way that would make her go to the doctor, get a biopsy, and now be knowledgeable of something that she never knew about. Those are the kind of moments where the awards, the acknowledgments, the people giving those type of stories, the testimonies, then give you the confidence and helps that sabotaging thought to go, well, quiet down, get on mute, because this is what we're really doing, so yeah.
Kim, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that this is where we have to really pay attention that there is so much power in our stories. Power, and this is what we're talking about here, right? The power of being that passionista. And when we look at the things that, the world says, oh, we're lacking or we're not measuring up because of fill in the blank, right? By us sharing that, we're actually allowing others to be empowered by that story and see in themselves that they're not alone, because the world is such a lonely place when we are in the woe is me, I am not measuring up. And really, what you said, and I think that I want the audience and anybody again listening, that the power in when we feel and really these negative emotions and thoughts are sort of like that stove that we have on, and we, it's on and we touch it. It's there to just make us aware, like, oh, that's hot. And then normalize it. Okay, everybody has a hot stove somewhere, right? And if you can normalize that, then you begin to see that you're not alone, that we're not this in our sense of belonging, like Maslow talks about, right? We're closer to getting there, of being accepted. But ultimately, really power in our stories. Cairo, I want to give you the floor. I don't know if you have any comments on that original question that Kim was answering.
Absolutely. And I actually want to thank Kim for putting it in this way, because when you asked that question, Julie, the first thing that I thought about was meditation and being able to look at my thoughts, observe them objectively. Because, it is true that our thoughts have power, and oftentimes our thoughts come from somewhere. So where is it coming from? Who told us this to make us doubt ourselves, for example? Why are we telling ourselves these things? And being able to then transition, because I'm someone who loves to take action. I'm like, okay, this is how I feel right now. What can I do to change this state? So I could be singing some of my favorite songs, and I love rock, as much as I love different genres. And so I will, listen to some of my stuff from like my emo phase and just sing it out, and then be like, okay, what goes on next? What can I do for the rest of my day so that I can make sure that at least I feel like I'm moving forward? Because sometimes we have these limiting thoughts that just keep us stuck, and you don't want to be stuck in quicksand, you know what I mean? Instead, what we have to do is we have to remind ourselves that we have to be accountable to us, and we can't necessarily expect someone else to be there for us. We have to be there for ourselves. And so that's really like one of the first things that I thought about. And then I would also say that similar to what you shared, Kim, like being able to get those sort of compliments, being reminded, for example, that you've been able to affect someone. I was actually speaking at a presentation in front of 600 high school students, and one girl, she came up to me. She didn't participate during the interactive discussion, but she came up to me afterwards saying, Cairo, I struggle with depression and anxiety, and I don't really think highly of myself. But she was like, you being here as Miss Black Florida and the committee that you represent within the UN, like you have really given me hope. And she, I asked her what her name was. Her name was actually, how my name is Cairo, like Egypt. She was actually named after another country too. And I was like, look, we're similar. Look how we're so much alike, and just being able to share that, I think, was really powerful. And the last thing that I will say as it relates to compliments and whatnot is that I actually take screenshots sometimes of the kind things that people say to me. And when there are times where I'm starting to think like, oh my gosh, like, am I really doing enough, or, I don't feel necessarily that I'm meeting my mark that I've made. As I shared in the comments, I was upset with myself for like almost 2 years for 0.0042 of a GPA. Can you imagine? So being able to like have those screenshots, have that little joy list, it helps tremendously. Thank you.
Cairo, you do enough and more so. And I want to remind you of that so that you in turn can go and remind somebody else. And, this is who we are for each other. We are, if you've listened to my podcast, I talk about this. One of my guests, my early guests, share this, and it's the concept of believing mirrors. Confidence is something that sometimes we grab when we see ourselves in the mirror. But I want to challenge all of us to be the believing mirrors for each other and to build each other. There's a question from the audience. How can we help other people around us feel more confident? Cristina, I don't know, since you're the confident girl coach for curvy women, but this may apply for everyone. Tell us a little bit more. And then Kim and Cairo, if you want to jump in, please feel free to do so.
That's a good question. I mean, ultimately, we are responsible for making our own selves confident, is what I truly do believe. But I do believe the power of being surrounded by the environment of confident people and constantly like giving people reminders of how, what they're great at, especially somebody who's not feeling the confidence, and you see what they're capable of, and like you see it for them and they're not quite there yet, to just share their show them how they're how they're talented or what they're great at, or just giving that compliment and that positive energy around that person, instead of letting them sit in that and ruminate on all the bad things that they might think about themselves. Just encouraging them to believe in all the things that you see about them. I think that is probably one of the best ways, in my opinion, to help somebody be confident, but just also knowing deep down inside that the confidence really comes from you.
Oh, so good, so good. And Kim and Cairo, along with that question, there's another follow-up question, and maybe you can combine it into one. Is what few words you use when speaking to young women, especially young women that you may see in yourself?
Okay, I can definitely answer that. What I do is I would really ask them, for example, what are some of their strengths and what is their passion and what are confirmations of their passion, and being able to, instead of just saying words to them that maybe may sound generic, for example, I want them to tell me how they feel about some of the things that make them happy, about, the things that they're looking forward to, and saying, okay, how have you been able to showcase those skill sets? Or how have you been able to open up the door for yourself that maybe you didn't even think about? Because I feel as though, as someone who identifies as a servant leader, sometimes you're so busy doing the work that you forget to document it. You forget to actually write it down. You forget that, for example, last week, what did you do? What are you doing to get closer and closer to your goals? It doesn't sometimes connect until someone else reminds you of that, which I think is so important. So in terms of key words, I would ask them, what are your passions? What are your strengths? And if you can't think of something right now, I'll wait a few seconds. I'll let you think about your answers, and then being able to build upon that, and then reminding them, for example, these are the words that you used for yourself, and then being able to take that towards whatever else that they want to achieve in their lives. Just being able to remind them that they do have strengths, they do have passions, they do have a journey or a pathway that they've taken so far to be able to get to where they are, and how can we get to the next level together? That's where the conversation then continues.
Oh, so good. Kim.
Yeah, I would just say when I'm trying to help other people around me be more confident, talking to young girls, and Cristina, we got to hook up. You in Houston? Okay. We're gonna do that. I would just tell them I'm a hot mess. I tell them how much I'm like, look, just look at me. Just listen to what my life, share stories about my life, what's going on. I love to tell them the things that most people think went wrong. And I have so many stories of that, of things. And that's how I make people feel more confident. I'm like, so if I, who am not the whatever, if society has deemed as the smart looking or most beautiful, all these other things, but I'm the founder of a beauty company, I am all of these other different things. I am all of the things I've been able to do. I'm like, girl, and I'm a hot mess, and I share with them that it gives them the opportunity to say, you know what, I am too, because a lot of times what's holding people back from their confidence is just some mistakes that people call them. And the ideas of comparison of other people and what they are. And so if I put down the block, do not try to compare yourself to my latest accomplishment, because you really don't even know how I even got that, you know, and you don't really know what was put into that. And then, so then if I share that with you, then you're like, oh, okay. So just getting people to get that, I think for me, it's just being transparent and telling them how much of, and y'all gonna leave here talking about hot mess, how much of a hot mess I am. It actually helps them to see, oh, so I can be confident around this. And I think that's the part. That's why I always get them. When I'm talking to young people, I talk to young people tomorrow, I have an event tomorrow. I'm just going to just give it to them straight up. All the stuff I done messed up on, all the stuff I done effed up. And that's going to let them know that, oh, so I can do that and still become and still make impact. Yeah, you can.
So good. So good. Hey, ladies, you know, one of the things that I have a niece and she's 9, and I have seen a lot of evolution in her from a young age. When she was a 2-year-old, she would, you know, put on a big hat and pose when you took a picture, and she would strike a pose. And as I'm seeing her grow, she is getting to that age in which she is posing less and speaking to herself in a less than great manner. And one of the things that I am it's my mission, not only for her, but for anybody else, is I use tiny habits because I'm a tiny habits coach, and I know that works. And I in the mornings when we speak, I typically will say, hey, what is one thing that you like about you today? Or what is one thing that you can do today to remind yourself of how awesome you are? And at times, you know, we have to create these tiny little recipes, and tiny habits is a concept of where in your day you have something that you already have automated in your life, and then you add whatever behavior you want to add. And the behavior of, and this is affirmations, right? I'm trying to teach her how to create affirmations rather than going through like a whole list of things I want her to repeat. I want to just get her into the habit of, in the morning, as she's having her breakfast, say one kind thing about herself. And after she says it, I'm like, whoop, whoop, celebrate, because our brain then starts to automate that behavior. So for those of you who know young women out there, just to automate it, create a habit for them. Find something that they are already doing. Maybe when they go to bed at night and they're moisturizing or washing their face, then they can say one thing about themselves that they like. When we look in the mirror, sometimes we don't see what we think we should be seeing. But I want to encourage you to live in the space where we are grateful also, because if we bring that attitude of gratitude about ourselves, then that also helps to build our confidence. We are getting
real quick, though.
Sorry?
Can I say this something real quick?
Yeah, please.
Because I also just want to acknowledge the fact that because I was just thinking about how did I get my confidence back after it was sort of just stripped from me, because like I grew up in a household where my mom was big about like we looked beautiful and all these other things and all the things we had good about us. But still with society, though, I didn't feel that way. I felt like, yeah she's saying that because she loved me. But in society not saying what she's talking about, right? And so there was just a report that came out, they surveyed almost 4,000 women of color. And 11% thought that society deemed them as beautiful. And these are grown-ups, almost 4,000 women, that 11% thinks that society views them as beautiful. So I also want to just bring up to the fact I didn't get my confidence after graduating from high school. The reason why I wanted to go to Clark Atlanta University, which is a HBCU, is because I saw all these beautiful Black people who celebrated each other. And it was in an incubation of people that did that. And they were all becoming different professions, and they were graduating from college and they were getting educated, but they admired each other's beauty and intelligence. And I just wanted to be incubated with those people. I think also confidence comes from the right incubation, even outside of the home, that we can get our young people around. So I just want to bring that up. In this society that we're in, I'm sorry, and I don't really give a damn who says anything. This society doesn't foster that. And so, you know, this society is built up on a hierarchy of beauty that does not even add up into what all of us look like on the screen. So we must understand that the confidence, the incubation around this has to happen within these type of groups like we're doing now, that to incubate this confidence for young girls. Because like me, I ran from Houston to run to Atlanta for a refuge to get my confidence in what I look like and who I was. So I just want to bring that up. And it's actually a plague that 11% of women of color feel this way.
I am so in agreement to that. Let's create that environment where people see and where we normalize that it's okay that if we look different and we can still feel beautiful, we can still feel into our power, and really create these environments. We really struggle with the compare and despair syndrome. And I want to encourage people to swim in their own lane, to stay in your own lane, and take it from someone who did a small triathlon that I never thought I could do. But that's how I slowed down in my swimming. When I started to look to the left, to the right, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at these people so much faster than I am. That slows you down, people. So stay in your lane, swim in your lane, and then surround yourself with the people who are going to really breathe into you. And Kim, I love that community reminded you that there's beauty in you because you got that affirmation from people outside. I felt other by beauty standards as well as growing up, and I have my locks for over 13 years. Beautiful, Cairo. Thank you for sharing. And I'm in love with this panel. I'm in love with the amazing things that each of you have said. I am in extreme gratitude for each of you. Final words. We're going to go, Christina's coughing, so I'm going to go to Kim, back to you, and then we'll do Cristina and then Cairo, and we will move it out so that we can get into our next panel. So Kim, take it away.
Think before you speak, but don't hold your tongue.
Love it. All right. I think we lost Cairo. So Cristina, maybe you take it.
Okay. So I'm sorry. I was having my cough attack. What am I doing?
It's the final words. Wrap us up.
Oh, again, just you got to believe in yourself and take the baby steps. And it takes some time, but you'll get there. It'll be worth it in the end. So just keep practicing, like you said, the tiny habits.
Oh, thank you. And I love it. And I see Cairo, I don't know if she's coming back, but internet is acting up. And she says, people told me I had to change to do the work I am privileged to do now. So glad I didn't listen. Yes, let's dance to our own beat, to our own drum. And just final words for everyone from me is, we each have a dream. We each have a little whisper in our heart that is telling us, hey, there's that passion and that promise of what you are able to do to live in your purpose. So listen to that little whisper in your heart. And the more that you do the action daily, and consistent action will get you traction. Thank you for joining us in this panel. And don't forget, go confidently in the direction of your dreams.